What if everything you thought you knew about life, death, and time was wrong? What if someone could remember not just a past life, but an entire civilization? Reincarnation. An idea as old as humanity itself has intrigued and mystified for centuries. But what if it wasn't just an idea? What if one woman lived it? This is the story of Dorothy Eady, a woman whose life and mind defy belief. Declared dead at the age of 3, Dorothy's miraculous return to life was only the beginning. What followed was a journey that would blur the lines between reality and the supernatural, between history and memory, between this life and the last. Born in London on January 16, 1904, Dorothy Eady seemed like any other child at first. She laughed, she played, she loved exploring the world around her. But one fateful day changed everything. Imagine this, a 3-year-old child running freely around her family's home, carefree and full of energy. Then, in an instant, everything comes crashing down, quite literally. Dorothy falls down a flight of stairs, and when the doctors arrive, the news is grim. She's gone. That's what they told her parents. Imagine hearing those words about your child, the grief, the disbelief, and yet just as her small body was about to be taken away, something unbelievable happened. Her eyes fluttered open and she gasped for air. Dorothy had come back to life. But had she truly come back? Because from that day forward, everything about Dorothy changed. Her parents noticed it almost immediately. At first, it seemed like Dorothy was disoriented, confused, even sad. She wasn't the playful, curious child she had been. Instead, she began speaking of wanting to go home. But this wasn't the home she shared with her family in London. No, this was somewhere else, somewhere far beyond the life they knew. She was only 3, barely able to form complete sentences, and yet she insisted she was missing a place she had never been. At night, Dorothy's dreams became more vivid, more intense. One evening, after waking up in tears, her parents asked her why she was crying. Through sobs, Dorothy described something no one could have expected. "I was in a beautiful place," she said, "with tall columns and strange symbols, and people wearing funny hats." What kind of dream was this for a 3-year-old? Her parents exchanged puzzled glances. These weren't the words of a typical toddler. But this was just the beginning. As Dorothy grew older, these strange feelings and dreams only intensified. Her parents did their best to ignore it, thinking perhaps she had an active imagination or that the accident had left some kind of lasting impression on her. But Dorothy wasn't imagining things, at least not according to her. By the age of 15, Dorothy's life took another bizarre turn. On a trip to the British Museum with her family, she encountered something that would forever change the course of her life. As they strolled through the museum, admiring the various exhibits, Dorothy suddenly stopped dead in her tracks. She stood before the New Kingdom Egyptian exhibit, eyes wide with awe. Before her parents could even ask what was wrong, Dorothy began running through the gallery, shouting, "These are my people! My people!" Her parents tried to calm her down, but Dorothy wouldn't stop. She was captivated, as if she had finally found what she'd been looking for all these years. And then she saw it, the image that would send her into tears. The Temple of Sety I. When Dorothy laid eyes on that photo, she broke down, crying out in confusion and sorrow. "Where are all the gardens? Where are the trees?" she wailed. It was as if she was seeing a place she once knew, but now it was wrong. The landscape had changed, the gardens were gone, the trees had vanished. Her parents were mortified. How could a child, a British child, know anything about a temple that was thousands of years old on the other side of the world? That's when it all started to make sense to Dorothy. Over the years, her fascination with Egypt grew into a deep, unshakable obsession. But was this more than just a historical interest? Was Dorothy truly connecting with a world she had once lived in? Her parents, concerned yet supportive, encouraged her to pursue other interests, but Dorothy refused. She spent hours at the British Museum, poring over Egyptian artifacts, studying the hieroglyphics as if they were familiar to her, as if she had seen them before. And then something else happened, something far more chilling. Dorothy began to speak of visions. Visions of a man named Hor-Ra, whom she claimed was the spirit of Pharaoh Seti I. According to Dorothy, Hor-Ra visited her during the night, revealing secrets about her past life. Night after night, these visions came, dictating to her the life story of a young priestess in ancient Egypt, Bentreshyt, which means harp of joy. Dorothy's detailed account was stunning. Bentreshyt had been a child raised in the temple of Omm Sety, dedicated to serving the goddess Isis. She had been a virgin priestess, chosen to perform sacred rituals that could only be carried out by those pure of heart. And it was during one of these rituals that she met him, Seti I. According to Dorothy's account, Bentreshyt and Seti became lovers, sharing what the ancient Egyptians referred to as the uncooked goose, a euphemism for forbidden love. But their affair would have devastating consequences. Bentreshyt became pregnant, and fearing the scandal that would ruin Pharaoh Seti, she made the ultimate sacrifice. She ended her life rather than face public disgrace. But that wasn't the end for her. Dorothy, or rather Bentreshyt, had returned reincarnated in the 20th century to continue her journey. And now Dorothy knew what she had to do. She had to go back to Egypt. At the age of 27, Dorothy boarded a ship and left behind her life in London to make a new one in Egypt. The moment she set foot on Egyptian soil, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace, of belonging. She knelt down, kissed the ground and whispered, "This is where I belong." It wasn't just a place, it was home. Once in Egypt, Dorothy took the name Omm Sety, which means Mother of Seti, and settled in the town of Abydos, a place steeped in ancient Egyptian history. She married an Egyptian man, had a son, and dedicated her life to the study of Egyptology. But it wasn't her academic pursuits that would make Dorothy a legend. It was something far more mysterious. Dorothy claimed to have an intimate knowledge of the Temple of Seti I, knowledge that no one alive should have. She spoke of hidden chambers, sacred rituals, and ancient secrets that had been buried for thousands of years. At first, the archaeologists and Egyptologists she worked with were skeptical. How could a woman with no formal training in archaeology know so much about such an ancient site? But they gave her a chance, and what happened next stunned them all. Dorothy led them to parts of the temple that had never been discovered, chambers that had been hidden for millennia. She described their contents with remarkable accuracy, pointing out features that had long been lost to time. The archaeologists were astonished. It was as if Dorothy had walked those halls before, as if she remembered them. But how could she have known? Was this proof of reincarnation? Or had Dorothy somehow absorbed all this information through her extensive research? Could it be that she had pieced together history so well that it seemed like memory? Even as she continued her work, guiding archaeologists through ancient sites, there were those who doubted her. Some believed she had an extraordinary imagination, fueled by her love of Egypt and an intense desire to be part of its history. They argued that Dorothy's discoveries were the result of chance, or perhaps even well-educated guesses. But others, believers, were convinced that Dorothy Eady was the living proof of reincarnation. One of the most remarkable incidents involved the sacred Osiris garden in the temple. Dorothy described the exact location of this garden, which had been completely lost to time. When archaeologists excavated the area, they found the remains of a garden just as Dorothy had described. Coincidence? Or a memory from another life? But the most astonishing detail was yet to come. Over time, Dorothy's knowledge became even more precise, more specific. She began recounting intimate details about the life of Seti I, information that was unknown to scholars at the time. She described rituals, ceremonies, even the layout of rooms that had yet to be excavated. And each time she spoke, her claims were proven true. So what do we make of this? How does one woman born in London in the 20th century know so much about an ancient civilization that existed over 3,000 years ago? Did Dorothy Eady really live a past life as Bentreshyt, the priestess of Sety I? Or was it all an elaborate delusion? Many modern scholars and Egyptologists are divided on the issue. Some believe that Dorothy's knowledge was a result of her extensive research, and that her mind filled in the blanks with a story that resonated deeply within her. Others, however, are not so sure. The specificity of her knowledge, the accuracy of her descriptions, how could she have known things that had never been written down? Dorothy Eady lived the rest of her life in Egypt, working as a caretaker at the Temple of Sety I, where she remained until her death in 1981. To the end of her days, she claimed that she had lived before, that she was once Bentreshyt, a priestess of ancient Egypt. But was she? Perhaps the answer lies not in Dorothy's memories, but in the way we view life, death, and the mysteries of the human soul. If reincarnation is real, Dorothy Eady's story may be the most compelling evidence we have. Or perhaps it was all just an illusion, a grand narrative woven by a mind so brilliant and imaginative that it could blur the line between reality and fantasy. The truth? It's still out there. And it's waiting for you to decide. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more stories where history and mystery collide. Tap the bell icon so you never miss an episode of Dark Truth. Until next time, stay curious and remember, the truth is often darker than you think. Good night.